Well, as most of you know, CEPA every 2 years puts on a forum of topical interest. And we have three signature issues that we follow. Obviously, number one of them is growth. The second one is groundwater in Maryland and problems with groundwater in Maryland. Actually, you'll see in Elliot Campbell's presentation a little bit later what the impact of groundwater is on ecosystem services. And the last one is that we monitor the PST Harwood landfill, which is the largest unmined landfill on the East Coast. It's down here in southern Maryland, just here in Harwood, Maryland, and it has got some nasty stuff in it. It is currently under a consent decree, and it is undergoing permit. It's NPDES permit review. And I really want to thank Irene Hatman, who's on our board. She has really spent a prodigious amount of time reviewing it and getting the state to put tighter clamps on waste management. I'd also like to thank all the partners who have joined us this evening, not only the Environment Center, but Growth Action Network, the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and 1,000 Friends of Maryland. And I think you'll see a little bit later how we all plan to work together. Well, what are the unsustainable issues of growth? The first one, quite obviously, and you'll see in a second, and it's hard to refute, is fiscal. We are really up against the wall in our ability to pay, all right, for the infrastructure that we are putting in place, the infrastructure that is created by new growth, but we're failing to account for the full value of maintenance and its replacement, especially in its second life cycle. That's an important thing, and it often gets overlooked. And secondly, there's really the critical environmental and social issues. The loss of ecosystem services really caused by low-density land use, and there's really an impact on our quality of life, and you probably haven't thought very much about that. But when you spread out, you create impervious surface, you increase traffic, and that's where it goes. And lastly, is the lack of the political will to really address and face these issues. These are long-term issues. They need to be discussed, and the implications that the current approach is taking needs to further explication. Before I get into this particular slide, I'd like to read you a little bit of the things that we've been talking about. Attempting to limit population growth is going to be a real tricky issue. And the environmental impact of just an additional person not only subtracts, all right, from the natural passive ecosystem services provided by open space, forests, and wetlands, but it also adds to the infrastructure and service costs that local governments must actively provide. In the suburban and exurban counties like Anne Arundel and those in southern Maryland, that leads to more traffic, more impervious surface, larger wastewater treatment plants. They need enhanced nutrient removal technology and leads to higher rates of conversion of agricultural and fragile forests, all to sprawl, right? And even more adversely to the physical impacts that I've alluded to, where the annual revenues are insufficient, all right, to cover these costs. These issues really transcend CEPA's issues, and that's why we've partnered with the other organizations. What I wanted to do with the next couple slides was to just briefly show you and give you an idea of what's happening. Elliot, in his presentation, will give you a little bit more detail about what's going on, but I just wanted to capture for you the impact of growth and what's happening. The colors on the slide are light green is agricultural, dark green is forest, all right? Yellow is low density, orange is middle density, umber is high density, red is commercial. Commercial, if you look at the lines, the red lines, they mostly follow the road systems. I drew the circle on the picture to just capture, all right, to get you a little bit of focus. And now we're going to look at what's going on in the next time period. And you can see the rate of conversion from green to yellow, from yellow to orange, and that has happened within the time period from 2002 to 2010. What's the issue? In Anne Arundel County, we're currently running a $2.1 billion backlog of deferred maintenance and replacement of infrastructure. Clearly, the schools are the biggest cost item. We currently have about 17 schools that don't meet, all right, the state recommended population in the schools. We are here at the community college. They're looking at a $200 million deficit for libraries, et cetera, and county roads. That is just a prima facie case right there without even looking at what's down below. That it's with a number like $2.1 billion with a $1.5 billion annual budget, there's no way that we can add enough money to pay down this backlog. And in 2009, they actually did a study for the GDP at that time. For those of you who can see at the very bottom of the slide, it said, at that time we had $2.2 billion. So you might think that we're paying some of that off, right? The answer is no, because in the bottom figure was the stormwater utility fee, which is no longer included in the top number, so the top number for those categories has actually grown relative to what it was in 2009. So, as I've said, the cost of gross and what it costs for our quality of life, we pay for the infrastructure, but we use up the ecosystem, and when the infrastructure costs are much greater than the ecosystem costs, our cost for our quality of life is actually increasing quite rapidly. What we are actually doing is drawing on the ecosystem bank. And you're going to be a little bit surprised and staggered by the numbers that I think Elliot will show us a little bit later. The main action from tonight is a call to action. The GDP in Anne Arundel County is up for review in 2019. We want to make sure that this GDP represents a sustainable, financial and environmentally sensitive comprehensive development plan. The second part is to educate the decision makers, to adopt a forward-thinking plan that actually invests in communities and makes these what we want financially sustainable. If we don't do that, Anne Arundel County's future is at risk. What we want is citizen involvement, and to that extent, we're going to form a coalition of community action groups. Ann Flixton and the Growth Action Network has kindly stepped up to chair our coalition. Our initial members will be the League of Conservation Voters, 1,000 Friends of Maryland, and CEPA plans to attend. We plan to have an organizational meeting probably within 30 days. We'll be sending out invitations, to all of the interested groups in Anne Arundel County. So if you don't belong to an organization, join one, get your organization to become a partner with us. With that, I think I would like to just get into the presentations, our speakers this evening. We have Garrett Knapp from the University of Maryland, and he's from the National Center for Smart Growth. Elliot Campbell is from the Department of Natural Resources, and he looks at ecosystem services. And Kimberly Brandt will talk about the successes of citizen involvement, particularly in Charles and Charles County.